So I've been using the R3 for quite a while now, and whilst I do like using the camera as is, you know, it's nice, it's light, it's ergonomic, there have been times where I need to rig it out, where I need to put a monitor, I need to put like microphones as well, so it's not just possible because it only has like one hot shoe. And so to my surprise, when I went out to try and find cages for this camera, there aren't that many. In fact, I think there's only one manufacturer, which is what this video is about, which is kind of surprising because this camera is kind of hypey for Canon fans. But yeah, so when Smallrig reached out asking me if I wanted to try out their cage for the R3, I was like, yeah, because, well, there's only one manufacturer that actually puts it out. So in this video, I want to talk about some of the pros, some of the cons, things that I like and I don't like, and there are a few things that I don't really like about this cage. And unfortunately, there's nothing else to base it off on because this is literally the only people that make this cage. So before that, let's look at the features of the cage and how it actually installs onto the camera itself. Okay, so the first thing that I really want to do is I want to look at the cage itself before we put it on. You can see from the cage here, there's honestly nothing much, and this is something that I really like about the newer Smallrig designs. They are very streamlined in nature. You know, there's no bulk, there's no added fluff. Everything that's here is intentional, and in fact you can see some actually cutaways inside, you know, like just like empty grooves here and there. This is actually to cut down the weight of the cage, which I also really like because this just emphasizes the mobility and the you know, weight reduction of something like a mirrorless camera, and it adds the functionality of the cage without adding more weight. You can see from the top here, you have two cold shoe mounts which you can put whatever you want. At the bottom, we have obviously the small Allen key as well as the like what do you call this, the tripod mount connection. Very nice, everything's placed with magnets. If you look here as well, this is also Arca Swiss compatible, so if you're a photographer, this is very, very useful. If we look back on the left side, this part here, this portion here, this is the port protection. It's not really a protection. It does help in certain cases, but it actually can be very cumbersome, which I'll talk about later. But this whole portion here is actually also Arca Swiss compatible, meaning that you can shoot vertical if you wanted to. And on this side, this is just more mounting points for you, and it's a curved, so it's very nice to grip. One thing that I really like about this cage, if you look here, is that these are actually, these ports here, these holes here, are actually anti-twist locks. This actually uses the lugs of the camera itself so that you can actually screw them in, and so the cage will move around. However, the screw for this actually got stripped. I'm not really sure how that happened, but I can't actually take out this this part here. Actually, this left portion here looks something like that, where you can put it in just like this. Something else I want to point out also, that there is like these parts here, or these holes here, that you can actually put your strap on. I actually like to put the Peak Design ankle links right here, and this one you can't see any because it's actually on here. So with that being said, actually let's just try and put this cage on and see how it looks like on the R3. So really simple, but as I said, this one here is already, I can't take it out because the screw got stripped. So this is a bit of a janky fit for now. Let's take this screw and we just screw it in just like that. And what we can have here, and what we can have put here, is we can actually use this port here, this portion here. This goes straight into the left side of the camera. You lock it in and you just screw this baby on. And it's tight, not going out. Okay, the screws also, I think it's going to strip as well. You can put it on here, and as you can see, the cage is not going anywhere because these are connected, right here. And what I like to do is just put my anchor links on just like so, and there you go. You pretty much have a cage for your R3. So now that we talked about the features and how you actually install this cage, I want to talk about some of the things that I like and don't like about this cage. I've taken this on numerous photo and video jobs at this point, so I have quite a good grasp on like where this is really good at and where this falters. And the first thing that I really love about this cage is the fact that it complements the camera. It doesn't add too much bulk, it doesn't add too much weight onto the camera. It just hugs the camera's form and gives a lot of functionality without taking away the original intention of mirrorless cameras, and that is to be smaller. I know it's a bit ironic when you see the R3 is smaller, but it's supposed to be smaller and lighter, so this cage doesn't add to it. And this is why I actually really like custom cages for cameras. I don't like universal cages because they don't take advantage of the camera's design to its benefit. So for example, just the two anti-twist locks here. So the fact that Smallrig actually uses the two camera lugs to keep the camera or the cage in place really shows that the benefits of actually using a custom made cage for the camera versus a universal cage. I also like the side here because one of the biggest problem with cages is that when you don't have this like curve or this like angled grip here, it tends to add more bulk onto the grip. While that's great for certain situations, but if your cage is going to be square, you're going to have a hard time gripping because you're actually going to be digging the angles into your palm. And so I love how Smallrig actually made this part smooth, and that way when you grip it on your hand, it's actually pretty comfortable. The other thing that I really like about this is actually, surprisingly, I don't use this as an Arca Swiss. I actually use this as a sort of small grip. Now this is sort of helpful in certain situations. I found it more helpful if I'm shooting photos, because if I'm shooting videos, I'll have another handle over here. But what I use this for when I'm shooting photos is I'm actually going to hold this at the side right here, especially when I've got a heavy long lens like an an EF 7200 or an 85-1.4. It's actually a bit front heavy. So what I'll do is actually grip it slightly, put it to my head, and put it to my face, and that way I have more control over the camera itself. I also love that there are two cold shoe mounts here. Not many cages give you two, so this is fantastic. So you don't have to add more accessories to the camera. It's already built in. The next thing I love is the fact that they gave you options for a strap mounts, and this locking mechanism, it's so smart. It's all these small things that don't sound like they're amazing features, but it's the small things that add to the functionality of the cage, which I really like. Just being able to put these Peak Design lugs anchor links over here is just a fantastic use of space. By the way, these are the black anchor links, which I really love. They're so understated on the camera. You can't really see. I really find the red ones a little bit obnoxious. But if you're interested in these, the links is in the description below. Now I want to go into what I really dislike about this cage, and it's such a bummer because everything about this cage is almost perfect except for this left portion right here, the pod protection or the Arca Swiss vertical mount. There are two main reasons that I dislike it a lot. Now, first one is obviously going to be if you are using a mic or a headphone jack. If your headphone jack or your mic is angled, you're going to have a super tough time putting it in and out. I personally use in-ear monitors to actually listen to my sound, and what happens is that if I both have a microphone and a headphone jack on it, it's really tough to take out. You're gonna have to dig it in, you're gonna have to dig your fingers in, and I'm always afraid that I'm actually going to break the headphone jack when it's inside here. So that's what I really don't like. The second thing, which is a huge con in my opinion, is that when you have your flip screen, when you turn it, it hits the side of the camera. If you're in a hurry, you could potentially break or scratch your screen. And the worst part is that if it's like this, it just stops right there. You know, you always have to turn it out and back in, so there's no smooth motion. And whilst I understand that it is part of a sacrifice of making a cage like this, I think this is a huge oversight, because I think people would rather have the swivel screen for video than they would the Arca Swiss for vertical shooting. That's just my opinion and how I use the camera most of the time. I just find it's very cumbersome, because when you're using a camera like this, you're obviously in situations where it's a bit more run and gun. You know, you're gonna have to like move really quickly, and I find myself always hitting the cage when I'm turning the screen, because it's just not in the right place. I wish Smallrig had just scrapped the Arca Swiss mount and just made way for the screen, because I think that's a bit more ergonomic and more useful in the long run. Yeah. The other weird design that I'm a bit confused with is the fact that one of the ports here, or the screws here, are actually recessed a lot more than this. So if you want to put like a plate that has two mounts, you're gonna have to have something that's longer for the back one, because for some reason it's at the back, like it's recessed a little bit. Not so sure why. Other than that, there is really very little to hate about this cage. Your buttons, none of the buttons are obstructed. You can see everything, you can access everything very easily, and more importantly, it doesn't add more bulk and weight to an already pretty light camera. Besides the negatives that I mentioned, I really love this cage. And it's cool that this is the only cage that is available for the R3. At the same time, it's a bit of a shame because there are no other options. But considering this is your only option for a cage for the R3, it's actually pretty damn good. I'm not gonna lie. I really like this cage. So yeah, if you have any questions about this cage that I didn't cover in this video, you can always drop me a comment or drop me a message. I'll be more than happy to help you out. If you're interested in seeing how I rig up the R3, you can click over here, or a link is in the description. If it's not there, it means the video is not out yet, but if you're watching this in the future, hopefully it's there. Thank you so much, Smallrig, for sending this over to me. It's really cool that they allow me to be honest with my review. Because I think it only helps in improving the products, and more importantly, it just helps us as filmmakers and photographers get the most out of the gear that is to come out, you know? So it's really cool. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.